Let's talk about the McCartney and Wings album with the billiard balls on the cover.
Yes, Venus and Mars. In astrology, it symbolizes love and passion. Venus governs love, beauty, and harmony, while Mars drives desire and physical energy. Perfect title for a McCartney album.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Because to really get why this record matters, you kind of have to look at the massive shadow he was living under when he walked into the studio.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about late 1974, early 1975.
You simply cannot talk about this era without talking about the elephant in the room, Band on the Run.
Exactly. Band on the Run wasn't just a hit record. It was a cultural phenomenon.
It came out at the end of '73, and it basically saved his professional life.
Before that, the critics were saying he was done.
They were practically writing his obituary as a serious artist. Then, Band on the Run drops, silences everyone, tops the charts in the US and the UK.
And just restores his credibility overnight.
But here's the thing about that kind of monumental success. It creates a terrifying amount of pressure.
Totally. Because now everyone is watching again.
Precisely. The expectation to follow up a masterpiece is suffocating. For most artists in that position, the logical move is to play it safe. You analyze the formula that worked, and you replicate it.
You make Band on the Run Part 2.
Exactly. You keep the sound the same, maybe tweak the tempo, but you don't rock the boat. You give the people exactly what they just bought.
But he has never really been one to do the expected thing.
No. His mindset going into '75 wasn't about maintenance. It was about expansion.
And that's a really key distinction for you to keep in mind. Band on the Run was a survival story. We all know the legend by now.
Robbed at knife point in Lagos.
Right. His bandmates quit moments before the flight. He's playing the drums himself. It was desperation recorded on tape.
And that desperation gave it a nervous, frantic energy that worked brilliantly. But with Venus and Mars, he didn't want to survive.
He wanted to conquer.
Yes. He wanted to throw a party.
And the first step in that victory lap was admitting that Wings couldn't just be a trio anymore.
The Skeleton Crew approach worked for one Miracle album, but to tour the world, which was the ultimate goal, he needed a sonic wall.
He needed a legitimate 5-piece rock band.
So they had to recruit.
Let's look at those recruits. Because the sound of this album is completely defined by two specific guys who walk through the door. First up, on lead guitar, Jimmy McCulloch.
A fascinating and somewhat tragic figure in rock history. He was a Scottish prodigy.
We are talking about a kid who was barely 20 years old when he joined Wings.
Barely 20. But he had the resume of an absolute veteran.
He'd already played with Thunderclap Newman.
And Stone the Crows. He wasn't a rookie, not at all. And he brought something Paul hadn't really had since the Hamburg days, honestly.
Aggression.
Yes. Jimmy's playing was muscular. It had a crunch to it.
You can hear that distinct tone cutting right through the mix. It's not polite.
It's got an attitude. It gave Wings teeth.
If you listen to the earlier records, like Wildlife, they can feel a bit tentative.
A bit soft around the edges. McCulloch sharpened those edges. He made them dangerous.
And then you have the Engine Room. They needed a drummer who could keep up with that energy, and they found Joe English.
An American drummer, which is a shift in feel right there.
Yeah, Joe was technically sharp, but more importantly, he was deeply groovy.
He wasn't a basher. He played in the pocket.
And that groove was essential because of where they decided to record. This is honestly my favorite part of the story.
They didn't go back to Abbey Road in London.
And they definitely didn't go back to a scary situation like Legos.
No, they went to the absolute source of the groove, New Orleans.
Toussaint Studios.
Owned by the legendary Alan Toussaint. If you aren't familiar with Toussaint, he is basically the architect of New Orleans soul and funk.
The musical DNA of that city is just thick in the air. You have the second line, brass band.
The humidity.
The jazz spilling out of Bourbon Street. It's a very specific flavor.
And it completely infected the sessions. Unlike the isolation of Nigeria, the New Orleans sessions were an open door. It was a social hub.
People were just wandering through, right?
Everyone. Lee Dorsey, Dave Mason, the funk band. The meters were hanging around the studio. It wasn't a closed shop at all.
It was communal. And there's that famous story about Mardi Gras. It was happening right while they were recording.
Imagine this. You have arguably the most famous couple on earth at that moment, and they want to see Mardi Gras, but they can't just walk down the street.
So what do?
They dress up as clowns, full wigs, makeup, baggy suits.
And it actually worked.
It worked perfectly. They walked through the crowds, completely anonymous, soaking up the chaos.
That sense of freedom and fun bled right into the tape. They even ended up jamming with the Meters on a river cruise.
They did, and that is the exact vibe of Venus and Mars. It sounds like a group of people having the time of their lives. It is polished, sure, but it isn't stressed.
It's a glorious mess of a party. So let's look at how that translated to the actual songs. You put the needle on side one, and what happens?
You get one of the best opening sequences in 70s rock. It starts with the title track,
Which has a pretty funny origin story.
He told Melody Maker back in 1975 that it was a total fluke. He was sitting in a cathedral of all places.
Waiting for someone.
Yeah, and just started singing words to kill time.
He's in a holy place, and he writes a sci-fi song.
Sitting in the stand of the sports arena, waiting for the show to begin, he imagined a guy waiting for a transport from space.
But musically, it's acoustic, it's gentle.
It lulls you into this false sense of security. It feels like a folk song, and then
The transition.
it is seamless. The acoustic guitar fades, and suddenly, Rock Show detonates right underneath it.
That drop is so satisfying, it's the sonic equivalent of the curtain rising at a massive stadium.
And that is exactly what Rock Show is about. It's a meta song. It's a song about playing a show written by a guy who hadn't played a stadium in nearly a decade.
He's name-checking the venues. Madison Square Garden, the Hollywood Bowl, the Concerts Go in Amsterdam.
What I love about it is the perspective. Even though he is the star, he writes the lyrics from the perspective of the fan in the crowd.
What's that man holding in his hand? He looks a lot like a guy I knew way back when.
Exactly. He never lost that fan mentality. He still found the communal ritual of the concert thrilling. He wasn't jaded by it yet.
And that track is where you really hear Jimmy McCulloch. That riff is pure 70s hard rock. It's glam, it's heavy.
It's confident.
But then, because of who we're talking about, he doesn't stay in hard rock mode. He pivots immediately to listen to what the man said.
The #1 hit. The pop masterpiece.
It's relentless. The melody just hooks you instantly.
It is completely effervescent. And we have to talk about the secret weapon on that track, the saxophone.
Tom Scott.
Tom Scott. He is a session pro, led the LA Express. He came in and laid down that solo in arguably one take.
It is one of the most recognizable horn motifs in the entire catalog.
It's smooth, but it has this slight grit to it. It fits the New Orleans vibe perfectly, even though it's very pop.
It proves that while he wanted to rock harder with the new lineup, he hadn't lost that melodic touch. He could still write a radio hit in his sleep.
For sure. But if we dig a little deeper into the track list, we find the stuff that gives this album its real personality. And by personality, I mean the weird stuff.
The comic books. Magneto and Titanium Man. You have to love the audacity of this.
This is him flying his nerd flag. He was a huge fan of Marvel Comics, specifically the work of Jack Kirby and Stan Lee.
So he writes a song where the X-Men villain Magneto, Titanium Man, and the Crimson Dynamo are actual characters in a narrative.
They are the protagonists. It's a purely enjoyable oddity. It reminds me of the nonsense songs from the Sgt. Pepper era, honestly.
Dressed up in flashy 70s production.
Yes. It's playful. He isn't trying to change the world with that lyric. He's just having fun with pop culture.
And remarkably, Jack Kirby, the artist who created those characters, loved it. He actually drew a sketch for the band later on.
He did.
Now, we can't talk about the sound of Wings without addressing a controversial topic.
Yeah.
And that is the role of Linda.
This is incredibly important. In 1975, the criticism of her was at its absolute peak.
People were ruthless. They said she couldn't play, couldn't sing, and was only there because she was his wife.
Which was, quite frankly, lazy criticism. Was she a virtuoso keyboard player? No. But was she a vital part of the Wings sound? Absolutely.
If you want proof, where should we look on this album?
Listen to Spirits of Ancient Egypt. Now, interestingly, Denny Lane sings the lead on this one.
Which shows the band mentality again.
Exactly, but listen to the backing vocals.
The harmonies.
Yes. Linda's voice had a very specific timbre. It wasn't a standard pop diva voice, it had a texture to it. When she stacked her vocals with the guys, it created a unique frequency range.
It added warmth.
It centers the melody. If you strip her voice out of the mix, it stops sounding like Wings. It sounds like a solo record.
She was the glue in the vocal stack.
Dismissing her contribution is a huge mistake.
Especially when you listen to the bass guitar playing, anchoring everything down. The rhythm section and those harmonies were locked in. So you have this tight new band, you have the New Orleans party vibe, you have the massive hits, the album drops, the fans go wild. But the press...
The press sharpened their knives.
Rolling Stone hated it, didn't they?
They were savage. They called it a press release concept. They said the melodies were uninspired. They even claimed it had the dumbest lyrics on record.
Ouch. That feels personal. Dumbest lyrics on record.
It does. But looking back, you have to understand the context. They were comparing it to Band on the Run. Band on the Run was, quote-unquote, important art because it was born of struggle.
Venus and Mars was fun art.
So the critics dismissed it as lightweight.
It suffered from sequel syndrome.
Spot on. But modern retrospective reviews, like the recent Super Deluxe Edition analysis, are much fairer. They point out that as a collection of pop rock songs, it is incredibly strong.
Its only fault was that it wasn't the exact same story as the previous album. Well, the public certainly didn't care about the reviews.
Not at all. It hit #1 in the US and the UK.
Didn't it have huge pre-orders?
Over 1 million units were ordered before it even hit the shelves. It was a commercial juggernaut.
And part of that appeal was the physical object itself. I remember seeing copies of this. It wasn't just a record sleeve.
It was a toy box. It was the first time Wings really nailed their visual branding.
The cover with the billiard balls.
The yellow background, the cue ball, and the red 8-ball. It represented the planets, Venus and Mars, the duality of the sexes, the duality of the band.
But inside, you got posters, stickers.
It was a generous package. In the 70s, buying an LP was an event. You sat on the floor, you looked at the gatefold, you stuck the stickers on your school notebook.
It made you feel part of the club.
And that club was about to go on the road, because this album wasn't just a product. It was a launch pad.
This is a crucial point. Venus and Mars was built to be played live. It was the foundation for the Wings Over the World tour.
The big one, 1975 and 1976.
This was arguably his greatest achievement as a live solo artist. They played the Forum, they played the Kingdom.
They broke world records for attendance.
And they were playing a lot of Venus and Mars material.
They were, and because they had spent that time in New Orleans gelling as a unit, they could pull it off. They weren't just a nostalgia act playing old hits.
They were a tight, powerful rock machine delivering the goods.
That confidence is palpable.
So when you look at the two albums side by side, Band on the Run versus Venus and Mars, how do we synthesize that?
They're playing completely different games. Band on the Run is the sound of a genius with his back against the wall, fighting for his life. You can hear the tension.
And tension often makes for great art.
It does. But Venus and Mars, it is the sound of that same genius when the war is won. It's what happens when the crisis is over and the artist is free to just enjoy their own talent.
It's polished, it's expansive.
And it's incredibly fun.
It brings up a provocative question for you, listening at home.
It does. What do you value more in your music? Do you want the desperate, raw ambition of survival? Or do you want the joyful, confident sound of victory?
I think the critics wanted the pain. The audience wanted the party.
And 50 years later, I think Venus and Mars proves that joy can be just as potent as pain when it comes to making rock and roll.
Well, thanks for joining us today. Whenever you feel like knowing more about the Beatles, visit us at BeatlesRewind.com. It's the Beatles, all day, every day, 8 days a week. Kaz, we'll do it again tomorrow.
I wouldn't miss it for the world. Bye, everyone.
Until next time, when you listen.
Your mind conducts its own symphony.